warm welcome to another Hoops and Dreams podcast. My name is Brian Fisher and this is episode 13. In episode 12, we rank the defenders, and in this episode, we'll be ranking the attacking players. I should also include the midfielders in this as well. And all of those are the ones who've done 5 or more starts for the season. I say we because I have 2 guests with me to help make a balanced judgment. Dave, my fabulous and uncomplaining podcast editor, and James, the creator of the modern Hoops and Dreams Forum. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
I'll introduce each player and each of us will provide a ranking, possibly with a justification as well. I'm sure there will be one. If you missed our rating for the defenders, that went out a couple of weeks ago, and it's still available on the Hoops and Dreams Forum or on our YouTube channel. I would also suggest and hope that you'll add some comments as well to either of those, wherever you get to view them. So the first one we're going to go through is Luke Amos. And Luke, I feel, has been growing in stature as the season has progressed. He takes on more and more responsibility and becomes an even better player as a result. So I've gone for a 7. Dave?
Yeah, I've gone with the same for Luke Amos. I think he's done well, considering he's coming back from a bad injury. Wasn't quite sure what to expect from him this year. He didn't really get into the side regularly until the new year. I think he's done really well when he has come in. He's added goals to his game. He's scored quite a few goals from midfield for us. He's become quite an important player for us. So yeah, I'll go with 7 as well for him.
And James?
Yeah, 7. I really like Luke Amos, and he probably would have got an 8 if the season was going to carry on for another month or 2, because he's starting to come into his own, isn't he? He's adding goals to his game, top scoring midfielder, more league goals than Charlie Austin, the stat that no one would have ever anticipated this season. Yeah, he's done really well, hasn't he? He's been managed a lot though, so it was hard for him to make that much of an impression because he kept getting subbed after 50 minutes or was only getting bit part and stuff. But yeah, I went with a 7.
Yeah, I mean, talking about sort of people being allowed to the opportunity to progress and to impress and to actually show that what they can do. That brings us on to Don Ball. The early games that we had with Don Ball showed that he could play very well in the Warburton style of play, which surprised me a bit. But he could also be still that effective defensive midfielder that we all loved. Sadly, it seems that Mark Warburton didn't agree with that. And for me, he was the most underutilized player. Especially against physical sides. I think he was sorely missed in a number of games where he could have played. I've given him a 6, and I've probably been a bit cruel there. James?
I gave him a 7 because statistically he is a 7. I put out some stats at the end of the season. He's our top ranking player for points per appearance this season. He was criminally underused. I think I've said before, I'm not even his biggest fan as a player, but we're going to struggle to find a better utility player than him. Even look at the last match against Swansea. He comes in, we get 3 points and we keep a clean sheet, and he's playing out of position.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
I
feel bad now. That's my 6. Oh,
yeah, God. I just feel like he never actually did anything wrong. And it seemed in the second half of the season, he played 4 games and we won them all. What was going on there, really?
Dave?
I went with a 6 as well for him. Mainly because he hasn't played as much, but I do agree with you. He's been really underused. I thought he started the season pretty well. He was okay. He's not the best player in the world. He didn't have the odd poor game, but he always did his best for us. I thought he was, he tried to protect the back 3 quite well. The last couple of appearances when he played centre half when we were down to 10 men against Blackpool, he come on and we won, and he was really good that night.
He was.
And again at Swansea, I thought he was really good as well. I'm a bit baffled as to why I think they're going to get a better utility player than him.
Yeah.
For that sort of money. I think he's been a good player for us. He should have played a lot more.
Okay, so this is going to be a straight yes or no. Should we be keeping him, Dave?
Yeah, definitely. I would have kept him. Yeah.
James?
Yeah. I know it's meant to be one word, but what I would say is in the past, clubs have released players and then signed them again at the start of the next season. And I kind of hope we do that with him, and either the new manager comes in or someone in the back room sees sense and says, look, he's probably not on that much of a wage. He covers multiple positions. You almost need 2 players to replace him in your squad. I hope they see sense, really. I do. Someone just hold their hands up, admit the mistake, shake his hand and say, sorry, look, we want you back.
It's a yes. It's a yes from me as well, because I think it's a big mistake. Okay. That brings us on to Andre Dazelle. I've said all season that Andre needs to become a more physical player and improve on his tackling. And the best way to do that probably is building up his strength. So there's probably gym work that's required. Inconsistency has always been his problem, I thought, throughout the season. But like everybody else, you start to see this progression of improvement. And I think the future for him is a lot brighter. I really do. I've gone for a 6. Dave?
Yeah, I've got 6 as well for him. I think he's had a pretty good season. Defensively, he needs a bit of work. I think he's quite easy to run off. He leaves a lot of space in behind him, and he doesn't always react that well to it. But I think he's had a reasonably good season, considering you wouldn't have thought he'd be anywhere near the team at the start. And he's become a regular. I think he's played the last few games of the season. He's done pretty well.
Yeah, I think so. James, same?
Yeah, a 6. Yeah, I couldn't really rate him higher. And I do like him. I think he's a good asset. He looks to pass forward, which is quite a few of our players don't, as we've discussed before. I think there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot he needs to add to his game, as you both said, but I think we have got potentially a really, really good player. Just needs to unlock it, don't we?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Which brings us on to Sam Field. Came back from injury to dominate the defensive midfield. And that's quite an achievement, I feel. But he's also been very dynamic and inspiring. For me, fantastic. I can't say enough about Sam Field. So I've gone with an 8. James?
Yep, 8 for me.
Okay.
Like we said in the previous podcast, he's first name on the team sheet almost, isn't he? He's just become the linchpin of the team. I love what he does. He gets booked a bit too much, I must say. 14 bookings didn't he get? And some of them are a bit silly. He seems to just, towards the end of the game, just pull someone back or slide into a tackle. So he can, again, there's things he can work on. But for his age, 24, he's a great asset for the club, isn't he?
You know, when I did the podcast interview with him, he came across as very calm and relaxed. But when you see him on the pitch, I think there's another side to him. He is desperate not to let them get the ball. And sometimes that gets the better of him completely, which I think is where the yellow cards come in. But yeah, great player. And Dave?
I went just below. I went for 7 for him, mainly because I think, like you say, those yellow cards, I think he does get a few silly bookings, pulling shirts and that kind of thing. And I think although he's done really well since he come in, he could do with adding a forward pass to his game. He's very much safety first with his passing, and I think he needs to take a few more risks. I think he acknowledged that in the interview you did with him. He spoke about needing to kind of add that to his game. But he's a really good player for us. Like I say, he probably is one of the first names in the team sheet at the moment.
Yeah, it has to be. I totally agree. Okay. Well, just have to hang on to him, don't we? That brings us down to Mr. Hendrick. I've got a feeling this is going to be interesting. Another lone player brought in to add depth and quality, but the quality rarely showed, in my opinion. A disappointment. I've gone with a 4. James?
I'd just like to say, if any of Jeff Hendrick's family, friends, children are listening, they can just press mute for a few minutes. That'd be great. I went with a 2, and I think he was lucky to get that. I had him on a 1 and was thinking, what positive can I give him a 2? What positive contribution did he bring to a game? I couldn't think of one. From the very first moment he stepped on the pitch against Peterborough in the cup, he was just anonymous, and it never got any better from there, did it? I honestly, maybe you two can. What did he? Did he have a shot? Did he do a great through ball to someone? Did he ever go cross? There was just nothing. So I've gone with a 2, and I think he's lucky to get that.
My God. Okay, children of Hendricks, don't worry. Dave's going to alter this now, aren't you, Dave?
Yeah, I went with 3. Slightly better. When we signed him, I've got some of my relatives are Newcastle fans, and they were all laughing that we'd signed him and said he'll be completely anonymous. You won't notice him at all. and they were unfortunately right. You know, we've talked about some of the other players. I don't get why we brought him in and didn't play Amos more or Ball more or Dazelle or anyone really. I found the whole thing odd. It's a shame because he was a good player for several years. He was good at Burnley. He was good at Derby. But yeah, he's just come in and he was pretty poor, I thought, really. I don't remember him having a good game at all.
I think what we're saying here is, this could be a running theme all the way through the attackers, you know. A great glowing CV does not make, therefore, a great person when it comes down to it. Age has its own problems. That brings us on to Johansson. For whatever reason, Johansson never achieved the level of fitness and quality we saw at the end of last season. He was brought in to interlink between the defence and the attack and deliver key passes. And I have to say in that he failed on many occasions. So I've gone for a 6. Dave?
Yeah, I went with a 5 for Johansson. I think he's been really disappointing this season. He started quite well, but he's never looked fit all season. He's looked like he's struggled for fitness all season. I don't know if he's been carrying injuries or whatever, but seeing how good he was last year compared to this year, it's just been so disappointing. You know, there's been, I think he's only scored 1 or maybe 2 goals this season. He's hardly scored goals for us. And where he was scoring quite a few last year, he hasn't created a lot. And at the end of the season, I thought he was really poor the last couple of games he played it. Hopefully he can get back next year to something like he used to be, but yeah, he hasn't had a good season.
Yeah, I can't help wondering if maybe he's going to be spending his off-season not on the beach, but on an operating table. There is something wrong there, and I don't know what it is, because he is a class player. And for me, he was a linchpin of what we needed. And when he went, that left the onus on Dazelle or Amos, both of which weren't ready for it, I don't think, or suited for it. So, James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I went with a 5 as well. Pretty much the same things. He was just such a disappointment, wasn't he? I mean, we all had such high hopes. We thought we were getting like the best midfielder in the league, and like you said, Dave, he scored 1 goal in the whole season. He got 4 when he was on loan for half a season, and we get 1 goal. It's like he was a different player. I know he maybe played a little bit deeper, but he wasn't as dynamic. It wasn't one fantastic performance. He was all action, wasn't he, when he was on loan? Yeah. And this season, maybe he has been carrying an injury the whole time, and he was just trying to battle through. Because at the end of the season, it was 1 on 1 off, 1 on 1 off. For the last 10 games, he didn't play 2 in a row.
Well, you guys were saying that in the previous podcast that Lee Wallace was the one who was interacting with Cher and Willock on the left. But I remember in the pre-season and whatever, and last season, Johansson was the one who was actually feeding them. He was the guy that was the conduit. It just wasn't there this season. So
I was so excited when we signed him. It was like, this is the final piece. We're going to do it. But yeah, it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, he was the captain as well. Don't forget, he was made captain.
So
people.
I won't say any more than that. Okay, which brings us round to Mr. Thomas. And as the season progressed, his performances in the under-23 games meant he was finally allowed to run out in the championship. Generally made himself a complete nuisance for other sides with his high work rate. And frankly, he did deserve a goal. So I've given him a 6, but I'm probably being cruel to him. James?
Yeah, I've gone with a 6 as well. I don't think we can rate him too much higher because of his lack of goals and assists and things, but I'm quite a fan of him, like I've said before. I like his action and energy and pace. We don't have any much pace in our team, so I do like that he brings that. And I think Warburton towards the end of the season kind of finally found a space for him in the team, didn't he? Playing off the striker and pressing on the defenders, he works. And maybe we'll see a lot more of him depending on how the new manager wants to play.
Yeah, you live in hope. Dave?
I went with a 5 for him. My dad calls him the running man because he just basically comes on and runs around a lot. I like his energy, and he's quick, and he tries his best, but he just doesn't offer too much. I mean, I think the Swansea game was the first time like he actually looked like he might score, and he kind of fluffed the chance. I think there is potential. Yeah, I think there is potential there for him. He's not terrible. He can get better. There's something to work with there. But I wouldn't go any higher than a 5 for him this year.
I think he's another one a bit like Kaká, who's perhaps guilty of trying too hard, isn't he? He's so keen to impress that then he has no composure about what he's trying to do.
Yeah,
that probably is a good reason. I mean, if you've been left out of the side for so long, maybe you go in with even more vigour to try and prove that you can do it. Okay, at this point, family of Charlie Austin, would you like to go on mute? Because it's now Charlie Austin's turn. A flagship signing that failed to deliver as far as I'm concerned. Unable, it seemed, to perform at championship level for 90 minutes, and his goal record shows how poor he was. I'm really disappointed. I was so excited when he re-signed. I had visions of past glories coming back again. I've gone with a 4. Dave?
Yeah, I went with a 5, sadly, for Charlie. I love Charlie Austin. I think he's been a great player for us over the years, but it just hasn't really happened for him this year. He struggled for form and fitness the first half of the season. I think part of it was the service into all the strikers really hasn't been great. It wasn't as though he was missing loads of chances, but he never kind of looked like his old self for much of the season. He had the odd good games. He played really well against Everton, and I thought he had a good game at Derby, but it's only handfuls of games. I'd have liked to see him used a bit more the last month or so. I think when we've needed to win games, it's odd that we haven't used him or Andre Gray as much. But you can't really go higher than a 5 really for him. He's not had a great season, has he?
James?
Yeah, I could only give him a 5. Much like Dave says, I do love the guy, but I wouldn't be. I'm not. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's just so hard to sum him up because we all wanted him to come in, but we all probably thought he was going to go 15, 20 goals, and he just never got going. He would even look good in pre-season, but once the season's kicked off, he just could never seem to do more than 60 minutes if he started, and he's never really that great off the bench. We do some stats on that, and I think he only ever scored 2 goals as a sub, so it was never really working doing that. He still had a good record when he did start. He never went more than 5 starts without scoring a goal. So and like Dave said, maybe we just didn't service him the way that he needed to be. Our plan seems to always, in the first part of the season, is obviously to get Wallace down. He cut it back. That isn't really what he wanted the balls to be swung in a little bit more, as we saw with his last goal he scored and the goal against West Brom, like balls to the back post that he can attack. So maybe he was a little bit unfortunate with some things, but he just didn't look. He looked off the pace. He has no energy, did he anymore? He looked like he was flagging after you do one run. Sometimes he looked like he had maybe stuff going off the pitch that was going on that we don't know about. It just wasn't something quite right, was there? It's just a shame. It's just a shame because everybody wanted it to work out. Even Charlie Austin wanted it to work out. His family wanted it to work out, and it just didn't. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, in a way, I almost feel that I wish he hadn't come back because he was a legend. And this, in a way, was not good for him, and it wasn't good for us. Maybe it was one season too many, but we don't know again whether there were injuries involved or whatever. But both he and Andre Gray were being swapped out before the end of the game. 60 minutes seemed to be about as far as you could expect them to go, which is really sad. Right, so Ilias Chair is our next one. Nobody can criticise Ilias's work ethics, but Willock's serious injury showed how much we needed the two of them as quality players, and how much Ilias Chair needed somebody around him of that quality. Sadly, Johansson had faded, and Dazelle and Amos were still finding their way when it came to ball into play, so they couldn't offer him the alternatives. However, his goals were not far off his target. I think he went for a target. Sorry, how many did he get? Am I right in saying?
9. It was his best goal scoring season. Yeah,
I thought so. I've given him a 7. James, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I've only given him a 7. I think it's just because he had that dip, but again, it could be behind the scenes. I think that African Nations Cup just maybe seemed to really knock his confidence, didn't it? He seemed to come back to that, and Took him until the Huddersfield match right near the end, didn't it, to kind of find his mojo again. He just seemed to lack all his belief in what he was able to do. It was very strange. But like I just said, he had his best goal scoring season. Still got assists. He's still, when he's flowing, and probably our best player, along with obviously when Willock's not on there. And he's only 24 still, and he's made 150 appearances. That's some achievement as well. I really like him. I hope he stays. I hope he doesn't leave, because I think another couple of seasons with QPR, and he gets into like that 200, 250 appearances for QPR. He's working his way towards being like a bona fide QPR legend, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
I'd like to see that. I think he already is, as our top 50 QPR players series will show. He's already well regarded.
It's coming up,
and yeah.
Good. Dave, what about you? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I went for 7 as well for chair.
Oh,
I thought he started the season really well, like a few others. He had that week where he got the 2 against Birmingham, and then he got the winner against Preston on the Saturday. He was doing really well. He was kind of carrying the team a little bit back then, but like you said, after the African Cup of Nations, he's dipped. I think sometimes he tries to hold on to the ball a bit too long. His final ball is sometimes lacking. His shooting's been a bit wayward as well recently. But I mean, overall, he's had a pretty good season. Actually, 9 goals. He's got a couple of assists in there. I thought he's finished the season quite well. He was excellent at Huddersfield, and I thought he was really good at Swansea as well. It was a great assist for the Gray goal. So, yeah, he's done pretty well, and I think he'll kick on again next season, hopefully with us.
I think maybe when you're talking about wayward shooting, whatever, I think sometimes he gets a bit frustrated that there's nobody moving into positions that he can use, and he just blasts away. I think overall he does get frustrated quite easily if he doesn't feel that people are doing enough for him. I would imagine there's a fair few others thinking the same. Right, that brings us on to Lyndon Dykes, another player in the same mould in terms of work rate. You can't question his work rate, but his quality perhaps is not just there yet. He needs someone alongside him, though. I mean, that to me seems quite obvious. He's very, very good at picking the ball up in the air and moving it on. Not so good at holding the ball and doing something with it, but occasionally he shocks you. For example, with his dive-in assist that resulted in a goal. For me, he can do more, so I've only given him 6. Dave?
I thought he was really good the first couple of months of the season, but then has really dipped since then, so I've only given him a 5.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
I think he's only scored, 2 goals in this calendar year? I think, is that right, James?
That sounds about right.
He scored at Rotherham in the Cup, and he scored 2 in the league against
Reading,
both in one game, but that's since October.
Yeah.
In the league,
it's 2.
Scored.
Yeah.
He's really dropped. I think when you see his performances for Scotland and compared to what he does for us, they're vastly different. A bit like Austin, I don't think we service him that well. We don't get early crosses in the box for him. He's another one. He's not missing loads of chances, but overall, I don't think he's had a good season. He's really dropped off. He's been a real disappointment, I think. I think he can come again. He's not a terrible player or anything. I think he can come again next season. But yeah, I think he's been a real disappointment this year.
James?
Yep, I give him a 5. And Dave just took the words right out of my mouth in terms of, to me, behind Johansson and Austin, to me, he is the biggest disappointment of the season, because he ended last season on such a hot streak, and he kind of carried that through pre-season into this season. And then he just disappeared. Once he got that stupid tattoo on his neck, he's never. Honestly, it seems to tie in. You look at this from when he was playing well, he had that. He seems to have gone off the boil ever since. And I was watching him even against Swansea in the last match, and I was thinking, is he going to get in the Scotland team? Has he lost his place now based on his recent performances? Because if you were the Scotland manager watching him in our last couple of games, you wouldn't be thinking, this is my main striker heading into those World Cup qualifiers, would you? He really has been disappointing. He's not scoring enough goals for our number 9.
No,
it's just a fact. He just isn't. I feel like if you shoved me on there, I'd probably get 1 goal in 20 games. He probably would. Just law of averages, the ball will fall for me. I'll just knock it in. he really, from where I thought he was going to go, I thought he was on a really upward trajectory, and he seems to have gone up, and he's just gone back down again, hasn't he?
Oh dear. Okay, well, we're going to move from those comments about Lyndon Dykes onto Andre Gray. I can see the similarities coming up here. The last of our loanees, Andre Gray, was in the news for celebrity stuff rather than goals. Like Austin, he struggled to complete a full game, and his contribution to the team was often poor. There's talk about him going to Preston North End on a free transfer from Watford. Not sure what will happen there, but I've given him a 6, the same as Dykes. So, Dave?
Yeah, I went with a 6 for him, slightly better than Dykes and Austin, mainly because he scored more goals and he didn't play that much. I think usually when he started, he scored. He did reasonably well. I don't think there wasn't many games where you thought, he's played really well today, but he always seemed to get goals every couple of games. So he's done reasonably well this season. You couldn't really argue with that, but not spectacular. Not kind of what you'd expect from a Premier League loan player. I think you'd probably expect better performances from him, but I don't know if there was fitness issues with him or what. But plus him going away with Jamaica every couple of weeks. I know you can't help that because you've got international duty, but they did always seem to break his rhythm up. He'd get in the team and then he'd be off for 3 weeks, and then he'd come back and struggle again.
And then you got pictures of him on the beach. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, enjoying himself. Yeah.
James?
Yeah, I gave him a 6 because obviously Dykes was a 5. Gray is a 6 for the same reason, because he scored more goals. But I really wasn't impressed with his all-round game. I think hasn't he got the best goals to minutes ratio after Mitrovic or something like that? But all of his goals, if you look at them, it's like one touch finish, or a penalty. Even the other day, tap in. His goal, when you think back about West Brom early season, he runs down, puts it in. Nottingham Forest, ball through from chair, first time finish in. There was one where he fell to him in the box, he hits it in. That's his forte, but for the other 89 minutes of the match, if he's on the pitch, he's not offering much. Doesn't hold it up. He's meant to be the one who runs in behind, but he just seems to stand gesticulating at people. Why didn't you knock it through for me and stuff? Yeah. So yeah, he got a 6, mainly just because he scored more goals than the other strikers, but I wasn't overly impressed with him in his all-round game.
Yeah, whenever I look at this, I look at the fact that neither Austin or Gray seem capable of doing a full 90 minutes, whereas poor old Lyndon Dykes, we're expecting him to do 90 minutes and more. So it's almost in a way like comparing chalk with cheese. You're bringing on a fresh striker who's only on there for 10 minutes and scores, and then you've got Lyndon Dykes, who's worked himself solidly away. I admit his end product's not particularly good. He has added something to the team. I'm not convinced anyway. Which brings us on nicely to Chrissy Willock. Willock showed that he can work with other talents such as Chair, or equally deliver by himself. When Chair went away for AFCON, he was playing in that creative area by himself and really delivered. A great addition to the squad, who was seriously missed, really missed when he suffered that major injury, and surely must be man of the season contender. Well, I think he was. So I've given him an 8. James?
I gave him a 9 because I'd given Barbe, Field, Dieng, they were my 8s, and Willock was a 9 above them. Outstanding, absolutely outstanding. It was getting to the point where if ever we were featured on TV, the whole build-up was always about Chris Willock, and the pundits always talking about Chris Willock every game. And I think
I'm sure his brother was really pissed off at that. Oops, I'm not allowed to say that.
Well, do you know what though? He was getting to the point where people were saying he's better than his brother, so his value was shooting up. He's probably 10, 15 million pound player before he got injured. Maybe he still is, and I'd be amazed if there isn't a team in the Premier League who sees his technique and his delivery and the way he glides with the ball and doesn't think he's worth a punt in the summer, even with the injury. If there's anyone I'm worried about us losing, it is Willock. He's been outstanding. 11 assists in a team that didn't have a goal scorer who got more than 10. That speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Dave?
Yeah, 9 for me as well. I thought he was outstanding this season. Like a lot of people I work with, they obviously don't know a lot about QPR, but every week they'd be asking me about Willock and what's he like. They'd see his highlights on the TV, and yeah, I mean, I think he's a fantastic player. Like James said, I wouldn't be surprised if someone takes a punt on him in the summer. The injury might have actually helped us in an odd way. It might put people off and might be able to hold on to him for the first half of next season. But I think he's been superb. His assists, his creativity, he's a really good player.
All right. Well, we're now going to do something that isn't in there, which is we're going to rate Warburton for his tenure. And despite the financial constraints, I think progress was made all the way up through till January, where it all obviously went horribly pear-shaped. Warburton's style of play and coaching were attractive, considered, and in my opinion, were unfinished business. He needed another season, I felt, to be measured properly. I've gone for an 8. James, if you can, in the short time we've got available.
Give him a 7. I'd give him a 7. We did fall away too much, really. I can, like Dave said in the previous podcast, it's understandable why they've done what they've done, but I do think the club need to be careful what they've wished for. We were glued to 18th, 17th, 16th. Now we've finished 11th and 9th in the last 2 seasons. We've done a massive jump up under him.
We have, yeah.
They obviously believe we can jump up further, but we'll see, won't we?
Yeah, we will.
I'll give him a 7.
Dave?
Yeah, 7 for me as well. The same kind of reasons, really. I think it's not often in the last 20 or so years in the Championship we've finished this high. We're normally bottom half. And he's finished top half twice now in 3 years. Probably unlucky not to do it in his first year as well. I mean, unfortunately, the dip at the end of the season it's cost him his job really at the end, hasn't it? So I wouldn't go higher than a 7 for him. But...
Right, we can't say any more on that, then, can we?
We could just fit in though that this was in the last 41 seasons since it moved to 3 points a game. This is the 11th best season QPR have had. So again, what are we really thinking he should have done? This was a good season by QPR standards, you know. So I don't know. It's not often a club we usually sack managers, like Dave said, because we're struggling. We've sacked a manager who's pretty much done what we've asked him to do. Yeah. Very, very risky. Very, very risky.
I totally agree. And who knows what the future holds now. Well, that's all of the attackers and midfielders now rated. And we've come to the end of this podcast. And it only remains for me to thank once more my 2 guests, Dave and James, for their contributions. And to let you know that in a fortnight, we aim to bring out the first podcast featuring our top 50 players of all time. These were voted upon on the Hoops and Dreams Forum. So watch this and see if you agree with these ratings. So meanwhile, my name is Brian Fisher, and this was a Hoops and Dreams QPR podcast production. Thank you for watching.
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.